But we're rocking, we're rolling. We know. We're doing it. Young Jamie Doo behind the mic. What up?
What's going on?
And welcome, Randy Haskin.
Yes,
Haskins or Haskin?
Haskins.
Haskins. Nice to meet you, by the way, and thank you for coming.
Nice to meet you as well.
And congratulations. I think you just received your purple belt in jiu-jitsu.
Yes.
Through Pat Campanola there at 10th Planet Fitness, or 10th Planet Fitness, 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu. Shout out to those guys. I do look forward to going back.
It'll be good to have you back.
You keep bugging my ear about it, and
Got it.
yeah, things are falling into place, and I'll be there sooner or later and get my ass whooped some more. So, but let's talk about Underground Alliance, right?
Yes, sir.
That's something that you do. You have your own. For those of you who don't know, Randy has his own YouTube channel, and you do interviews similar to this, but with people who are even more in depth in the martial arts community. Correct?
Yes.
So talk about that a little bit, because I obviously looked around. I saw that you had a really cool interview at actually Blue Water Sushi, not too far from here, which is an awesome restaurant, and obviously you did one with Pat Campanola as well, which I watched a little bit of. But talk about that a little bit.
Well, I'm learning how to do all this stuff, the interviewing and things. And
Here, bring that in just a little bit. Sorry.
I learned from watching yours of Pat. You're a phenomenal interviewer.
Oh, I'm getting better. I'm a lot more nervous than you might think. So I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Definitely can't tell. But I started my YouTube channel a long time ago. Probably 25 years ago or whatever, whenever YouTube came out or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to do more content for my channel. So I started doing interviews, trying that whole side out. People told me I should do a podcast or something, but
yeah,
I'm too
got too much a lot going on, or
well, no, I'm real judgmental when it comes to the martial sciences.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm too confrontational.
Yeah, because I probably didn't introduce you really that correctly, because you don't just do jiu-jitsu. You do a few different martial arts. Aren't you a black belt in something else, or?
Yeah, I started training in 1976.
Yeah, talk about that for a sec.
1976, I started training in karate system.
Yeah.
Or the system of karate, I should say. In Taekwondo karate under, Mark Whitley sensei, under the Kudokai banner.
Okay.
Kudokai is an organization, a family-oriented organization established by a gentleman by the name of Noriyasu Kudo. Noriyasu Kudo sensei is a judo champion, karate practitioner, high-ranking, jiu-jitsu, judo, jujutsu or jutsu.
Oh, wow.
Systems. He has all types of things under his belt. He taught at West Point. He taught the Royal Palace Police in
shit.
Japan. You name it, he's done
Was
it.
he on? Did you probably? I will be very surprised if you didn't see this show called Mind, Body, and Kick-Ass Moves. I forget the name of the person who did it. It was a TV show.
Really?
Yeah, it was an awesome TV show where this guy from, I think it was either Australia, maybe it was from here, but he would go to all those Eastern countries and just go through the depth and profundity of all their martial arts and stuff like that. And he actually interviewed the guy who trained some of the... I really wish I could remember the name. Are you looking it up right there?
Yeah, I'm looking for it.
Oh, it was so good. My uncle watched it, had like all the CDs at one point, and
Really?
I wish I could remember the guy who did it, but I feel like it would be something you'd really, really love, because he had that... He had that desire for the very finite aspects of these martial arts, because he was a real stickler for the true and authentic experience and origins of these things, and so he would go through all of them.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I have to look that up.
Yeah. So you trained under these guys? How did you get?
Well, what it was when I was younger, my cousin kicked me. And I was highly impressed with his ability. So I started asking him questions. And his mother found out that I was interested, so she took me and my brothers and took her son and put us in a school together. I never left training after that. Everybody else kind of quit. But I was like 6, 7 years old or whatever. Never left. So throughout that time, I trained with a variety of different instructors, just trying to find what fit me.
Yeah.
And then in high school, I went to school with these two twins, Derek and Darren Whitley. So they introduced me to their older brother, Mark Whitley Sensei, and brought me to work out with him. Started working out there, fell in love with their method of training, never left. And the Whitley system was housed under the Kudokai banner.
Okay.
Nori Kudo being their father's instructor as well as best friend.
So is there a level of tradition that was sort of integrated into that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So the burning question within the Kudokai was, what would happen if you took one person and trained them in everything? Because the Kudokai was an umbrella organization that housed different systems and different styles of different respective systems.
Mm-hmm. So
I studied karate under the Kudokai banner, and then there was judo, there was aikijutsu, there's taiho jitsu, which are wrestling techniques.
So you mean by systems, you mean just there's different martial arts with it underneath the same?
Well, a lot of people don't understand the difference between systems and styles.
Okay.
So systems, and there's different context, and then there's different systems.
Yeah.
All right. So the context would be sporting context, pragmatic context or self-defense context, traditional context or aesthetics,
Right.
And then there's
aesthetics, kind of like what is it, like taekwondo or not taekwondo?
It's like forms.
Tai Chi, maybe.
Traditionalism and things like that, training for those purposes.
Right.
Context is the purpose of training. And then there's different systems. So there's karate is a system.
Yeah.
Boxing is a system. Wrestling is a system. Judo is a system. Now, they could all those systems right there, their context could be, somebody could study those systems for self-protection purposes, pragmatic purposes, learning how to use it in real life, or they can study it for sport, in a sport context.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So we'll say karate, judo, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, right?
Right.
Those are 3 different systems let's talk about. Now, when it comes to styles of those respective systems, there's many different styles of the system of karate. There's there's Shorin-ryu, there's Matsubayashi Shorin-ryu, there's
because I feel like karate is so painfully vague. When somebody says, "Oh yeah, I got a black belt in karate," we know we have friends who have that, and they've got it as kids. So what does that mean? Yeah. Versus somebody like yourself who has their black belt as an adult. Are they going to be just as skilled as you? Probably not. You know what I mean? And I think that's where that style.
It really depends on what the system or the. It doesn't matter if you got it as kids. It's what that system, that belt in that system represents.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Because in Japan, you can get a black belt in a year, 2 years.
Really?
You know what I'm saying? Because it just means that you're a serious beginner now. You're truly a student of the art, right? What you did is, if we put it in terms of real life, when I was in high school, I went to Putnam High.
Okay.
My trade was heating and air conditioning. Heating and air conditioning, my instructor would give you a list of tools you had to buy. So you get your tools, your toolbox, your tool belt, whatever you bought, and all the tools are in it. And then he would put his toolbox on the counter, open it up, pull out a tool, and tell you to find the same tool in your toolbox. So you find it, and he says, okay, this is a nozzle wrench. This is what it's for. He explains all the tools. You go through your toolbox and inventory your toolbox.
Yeah.
Now you have a collection of tools, and you kind of understand those tools to a limited level.
Yeah.
Right? You're now a black belt once you finish inventorying that toolbox.
Oh, okay.
So now it's time to go into a related sciences class and learn the information that you need to know in order to successfully negotiate your trade.
Okay. And
So,
apply those tools, I would assume.
And then once you understand the information, now you'll know what tool you need to fix the problem.
Oh, okay.
You see what I mean? So that's an equivalent of what a black belt means in the karate world.
Oh, all right.
You know, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is kind of different. Once you get a black belt, you're like a professor and things like that. It's a different dynamic.
Yeah. Well, I think the variable there is time, because obviously, to get to, in other words, to get the black belt in Jiu-Jitsu, it's a matter of time more so than knowledge, perhaps.
Well, karate, they have time spans.
Yeah. Okay.
They have time, and each rank has they have charts out where each rank. But I'm not a stickler for time because there's prodigies.
Well, yeah, no, exactly, and I was just thinking, as far as 10th Planet goes, they say it usually takes like 10 years to get a black belt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it depends on your level of dedication for sure, and how much effort you put in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Combined with natural ability, of course. Some people pick up things easier than others.
There's prodigies. There's people
people who are already very, very good at it.
There's 12-year-olds that graduated college.
Yeah, that's a good point. So how then would you, in the system where time is what defines what kind of belt you are, that might not be fair.
There are those exceptions, excuse me.
Yeah.
Because Gio, he got his black belt in 4 years.
Really?
In 10th Planet.
Yep.
Holy shit.
His brother got it in like maybe 6 years or whatever it was.
So it's probably fair to say that there is a level of skill that's recognized that can achieve results quicker than
skill
others.
And understanding.
Yeah.
That's a major question within the martial community. Do you think people value skill more than information?
Yeah, it's the difference between knowing and understanding, I think, is really what it is. So, like, I could know everything there is to know about jiu-jitsu, but have no understanding of how to actually apply it in that pragmatic sense, and right when I'm facing somebody, you know what I mean? To study it is so much different than to actually apply it. I think that's a big problem, actually, with like school. Education is actually a really good candidate for that observation, is that we could read every book we want to about medicine but still know very little about how to actually help somebody to diagnose them or whatever, in any instance for that matter.
I definitely think a lot of things in the world sort of require having like an intuitive understanding of it. I think especially when it comes to caring for people, I think being in touch like with where you are as opposed to just like logically thinking about what somebody's going through is so much more important.
Yeah. Taking in all the components as well, because I will say it seems like a lot of the times things can be broken down as though they are a machine, and then you're sort of hyper focusing on minor details of we'll say a series of mechanisms, versus taking into account that each of these things needs to exist for all of them to work. And that oftentimes doesn't get the credit it deserves in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Were we talking specifically on medicine? What was it?
Medicine for sure. I think.
Yeah, it is kind of odd how a lot of doctors are specifically one doctor. Like that, meaning they are ear. That's annoying. An ears, nose, and throat doctor. You know what I mean?
I think the human body is definitely super complex, though. I mean, even in comparing this metaphorically to just martial arts, even within the subset of jiu-jitsu, like you get people who are specialists in one specific area of jiu-jitsu, like somebody who's a specialist in leg locks, or somebody who's a specialist in takedowns, or whatever. And I think it's extremely difficult to have the specialist understanding in all the various areas of any one thing.
When it comes to the martial sciences, I speak a lot about that. That dynamic itself. If we look at the martial sciences historically, right? So karate itself, right? And I speak on karate a lot because that's my bread and butter. That's
Yeah.
my love.
And how
right?
long have you been doing this too? I forget if we mentioned that so far.
45, 46 years.
Jesus Christ.
Um,
That's insane.
I'm 51 years old. I started when I was like 6 years old.
And you've just been crazy about it since.
I never left, never stopped training. I train constantly.
That's insane.
I studied, like I said, under the Kudokai banner, and there was always a burning question within the Kudokai, even before I got there. What happens if you take one person and train them in everything? Because when you go to study under the Kudokai banner, you pick a system and you study that system, and you get your black belt or whatever you're going to do, and you go that direction. So they always had that question, and they decided to make me that experiment. So I ended up receiving rank in Aikijutsu under Takeshi Okamoto sensei, rank in karate under Mark Whitley sensei and under Norikudo sensei, and rank in judo as well under Norikudo sensei. So I have 4 black belts, and I hold a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Jesus.
I've been studying.
That's so impressive.
Oh, thank
you.
you.
And what are you teaching right now at
Yes,
all? So
yes.
what do you teach? And do you have like a facility and stuff like that? Or
Yes. I teach privately in my house. I have a dojo. Every house I've ever owned, I built a dojo in. I don't believe in commercial dojos,
right.
because then you have to train anyone to keep your lights on.
Well, that's just it. You're obviously that's the real bummer about the nature of business itself, is that more often than not, embarking on any business, you will find yourself having to spend more time sustaining the business than doing what it is that you're selling.
My mortgage will always be paid.
Yeah.
So regardless if I have one person in my dojo, 30 people, or just me, my mortgage will be paid all the time.
Yeah.
So I reserve the right to be selective.
When did you say, all right, I need to start teaching?
I started teaching in 89.
Okay.
Yeah.
Specifically, which of the martial arts were you teaching?
Well, that's another thing. There's no such thing there's no such thing as styles. So I don't teach. I just teach you how to protect yourself.
Oh, okay. So it's just an overall self-defense.
Well, self-defense is a situation to be dealt with a tool. The art is a tool.
Yeah.
So I'll provide you with the tool, and I'll teach you about self-protection. I'll teach you about violence and how to deal with it. I don't subscribe to styles, because if we look at the Martial Mountain itself, there's different paths up that mountain.
Yeah.
Right? So say a path, 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, path up the mountain, Shotokan Karate. When you reach the summit, you should be able to see the same sights.
Yeah.
You won't see each other on the path, but as you
get to the peak,
ascend, you're going to see the same sights. So you should understand the same things. And there's 15 basic lessons that one should understand if they study a martial art. You understand? There's 15 basic lessons, like balance being one, structure over strength being one. There's different subjects. So your art should teach you that, because it's all
fundamental. It's foundational.
2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. There's nothing that's going to change in the respective art. The only thing that changes is the curriculum leading to the understanding.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the way I look at it. So I don't subscribe to styles. So what do I teach? I provide people with tools, and a person's toolbox is going to be as complete as they desire it to be.
That's fascinating. And I actually, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems as though you give people the necessary components in which they can learn. You're not teaching people what to know. You're teaching them, or rather, what to learn. You're teaching them how to learn, essentially.
I teach them how to train.
Right.
That's my job.
That's so important, because I've recognized just through various educational systems and in different environments of learning, that sometimes it's all just trivial. It's all just here's what you need to know, or remember this or something like that. and it kind of doesn't go anywhere beyond the material. And so it's kind of neat to, show people those components, and then
People are so stuck in the physical
yeah,
that when you train someone in the physical aspect of, if that physical thing fails, they're lost.
yeah,
So the way that I approach my training and my teaching is this: there's in a generic level. So I teach concept, theory. I teach a concept, I support it with a theory, and then I give a physical example of.
okay,
Okay. So a concept is what you want to do. Theory is why you want to do it. And then the physical example I present is just a physical example. It might be a functional example, but it's just a physical example. It's what I choose to get that point across. So once you understand the concept and the theory behind it makes you believe in the concept. Okay. And then my physical example shows you how to achieve that particular concept. You're no longer limited to the physical example I gave you. You'll adjust your physicalness or use your physicalness to achieve that concept.
okay,
But if I just give you a combination or a technique and that fails, you're limited.
yeah,
People their mind goes in the fight. But once they understand the concept, they'll constantly adjust their physicalness to achieve that concept.
That's a good point, because not everybody's built the same size, right? Is that's a huge component to it.
Yeah, and a toolbox is going to be individual.
Right.
You know, like you said, there's some people who love leg locks. There's some people who love,
arm
whatever.
bars or something.
For example, when it comes to, like, I don't do jumping kicks a lot. And I'm not into that. But somebody like, say, Michael Jai White, he jumps a lot. And he's a huge human being who has a crazy ability to throw his body around like it's, like nobody. It's insane.
Right.
I don't have that in my toolbox because I don't use those. One reason is because I jumped one time with this beautiful kick, and my instructor side kicked me out the air.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Ooh, that's weird."
Kicking might not be for you.
Yeah,
That's weird.
I was like, there's no reason for me to, why leave the ground like that when I can do everything from, so
capitalize on your strengths. Essentially, you want to make
Exactly.
sure you're doubling down on your strengths, and that's a good point too, because sometimes there's a lot of overemphasis in any educational environment on your weaknesses. And while it's important to know what your weaknesses are and improve on them, I don't think there's enough nourishment or encouragement for people's strengths to be accentuated.
Well, in training itself, the process is, in training, we explore our weaknesses. In the fight, we exploit our strengths.
Yeah. That's a good
Would
point.
you think that the path of training for a lot of people is sort of like an act of self-discovery?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It sounds like...
Absolutely. But again, the context is going to mold your training. I train strictly. I spent 22 years working in a prison, longer than that, because I used to run DYS before that, for a couple of years. Before that, I was senior treatment counselor at Brightside for Families and Children. So I found myself in careers also doing bodyguard work, bouncing, bounty hunting. I did all that stuff. So I had to fight a lot.
Bounty hunting?
Yes.
What was that like?
It was insane.
Would you have? You got to talk about that a little bit now.
Well,
like as much as you can, of course. But
here's the thing. This is what it was. In 1991, I received my first black belt. 1991. Okay. I started teaching when I was a brown belt in '89 because my main instructor at that time, had left the area for a little while. So I opened a dojo where I had a place to work out, and people would come work out with me. So it was more just a space to work out in. And when I got my black belt, I expected the clouds to part, the sun to hit me, me to hear that all-encompassing music.
You are now complete.
Yes. And it didn't happen. I was like, oh, something's wrong.
Yeah.
So then years later, I got my second degree. And again, I'm waiting. Nothing happened. I was like, something's not right. So I felt I needed to explore. So I started bodyguarding, bounty hunting, and bouncing. I did a lot, anything that would get me into legal fights. And I quickly realized the problem was I had technique, I had this, I had that, but I didn't understand a lot.
Yeah.
So in that time, I started bounty hunting for in Massachusetts. It's illegal. It's kidnapping in Massachusetts.
For what?
Bounty hunting.
Oh, bounty hunting. Okay.
If I had to come here and grab you,
yeah,
and I took you across state lines or something, that's kidnapping.
Okay.
In Connecticut, it's legal.
Really?
Yes. So this gentleman, he passed away. I researched him recently. I started working for this guy. His name was Chris Ballerini, in Manchester, Connecticut. He had a bail bonds and bounty hunting. They usually mix that.
Yeah.
So I got a job with him. And
so was it a bail bonds type thing?
Yeah, it was. It most of them they mix.
Okay.
You know. So what happens is a bail bondsman, if he posts a bond or something for somebody, and they default.
Yeah.
What he does is he hires a bounty hunter.
Okay.
And the bounty hunter goes, he gets the file and goes, okay, this guy owes whatever, I don't know. So he'll go to court with the file and get an extension, right? So say he has to be picked up within 30 days. We'll get another 30-day extension, so 60 days. So we got 60 days to find him. And let's say it's a $10,000 something, right?
Yeah.
So the bondsman has $10,000. He'll go, this is worth $3,000 to me or whatever.
Right.
So
when you get the guy.
So so when we go search for him, and we usually find people 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning,
right?
Usually because they have to sleep. That's when we stake them out all day and do things. We track them, and then at 3 or 4 in the morning, we'll break in the house and get them.
That must have been fucking crazy.
You're protected by the federal government.
Yeah.
So by the federal laws. So, bounty hunters have a lot more leeway than most police.
It's probably a pretty damn dangerous job.
Oh, yeah, it's insane. It's insane. One thing he told me, Chris, we were in Waterbury, Connecticut looking for this guy. And we go to this house. And he's like, all right, I want you to go back, take the shotgun, this, that, and other. I'm like, this is all right. He's like, listen, they're going to say they don't speak English. He said, everybody speaks English. It's like, what? He said, listen, if they start that, pump the shotgun once, they'll start speaking English. This is the Rosetta Stone right here.
Right.
I was like, all right. So we go in. He knocks on the door, go around back, boom, boom, go in. Lady's like, no habla inglés, all this other stuff. Boom, boom. Oh, who are you looking for? All right, listen, we dropped him off at the airport. I was like, that worked. Everybody speaks English.
She never spoke a lick of English in her entire life up until that moment.
That is the Rosetta Stone.
She was speaking old English, like I'm talking. What the hell's the really old English language?
Thou shalt.
Yeah.
That stuff. Yeah, it's incredible. But I did anything that would get me into a fight. Bouncing, bounty hunting. I did a lot of clubs downtown. Springfield.
So do you think this was like a conscious decision to understand what specifically? Did you like consciously think to yourself, there's things that I don't understand and I need to go find them out here?
Well, this is what made me, because when I say as a black belt, I waited for the clouds to part and everything. And I was like, wow, I always had this vision, because you see movies of a black belt easily dispatching of the enemy.
Yeah.
Right? It didn't happen. Fighting was hard. It was still hard to me. And I was like, it's equivalent to this, I got a complete toolbox, as complete as I desired mine to be, right? What is a tool designed for? It's designed to make the effort of fixing whatever problem effortless.
Right.
If it's just as hard with the tool as it is without the tool, what good is the tool?
Yeah.
So I said to myself, it's obvious I don't understand something.
Yeah.
Something's wrong. So I started getting into all these altercations, and I quickly realized what I didn't understand. This is the problem that I find with most people who train. They focus so much on performing technique until they get the technique that they don't study the technique of each respective action.
Oh, okay.
So they don't truly understand the technique of the technique.
Right.
They just perform technique.
Right.
Yeah.
So, for instance, if you were going to enter rubber guard, a lot of people think the essential part is getting the leg up over and cupping your own leg over them, but they don't understand that the technique of breaking the posture within the rubber guard is actually one of the most essential parts of entering into rubber guard.
Let's go deeper.
Right.
Breaking the posture is a technique
Right.
in itself, right? So there's technique to breaking posture, right? But rubber guard itself, mission control, there's a technique to mission control. From my study, mission control, the important part is not grabbing your ankle.
Right.
It's the knee. It's the hug of the knee. Without that, people blow their knees out, right? The hug of the knee will keep the angle and allow you to, it'll allow the opponent, or it'll allow you to keep your spine and their spine offline.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So it's the hug of the knee that matters. The ankle really doesn't matter.
Right. So you feel like when you started to look around for these answers, you started to see far more nuance in all the things that you had learned?
Now when I process things, I process it at a different level than most. Training up, my nickname, my instructors named me the professor. Right. Because I broke everything down to those levels. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, it's just I stress, and I tell this to people all the time. I've said this in 10th Planet to people. I say, listen, it's very important that you study the technique of the action. Don't just perform the action.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a lot of unnecessary emphasis and expectation put on your degree of skill mitigating a situation for time. I think a lot of the time, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, because again, I'm nothing in any martial arts realm of skill or anything. However, I would assume that more often than not, your ability, or rather, the degree of your ability would only influence the degree of your rate of success, not really time to, not really how much time it's going to take you in all instances to say subdue somebody, because everybody's different and a fight's still going to be a fight.
Yeah.
So whether it takes you a minute or 10 minutes, your odds of winning are still just as high, but the time at which it takes you to win might still be longer than you would expect, and mostly because of Hollywood. You say black belt and somebody goes, oh, and then it's like all of a sudden the guy's on his ground with pee in his pants. But that's not really how it works in real life. You know what I mean?
Here's the thing. Keep in mind, right? First of all, I don't like the term fight. I just address situations. Yeah. That's the way that I approach it. And when it comes to fighting, the act of fighting, and I throw up the quotes when I say that, it's not hard. Mm-hmm. It's not hard at all.
It feels natural from what I've done. Like rolling feels very natural. Something about it.
Yeah,
anyways.
you're just wrestling with your friends at that point.
The thing is, when it comes to utilization of tools, first of all, tools always work. There's never a time a tool doesn't work. Think about that.
Well, everybody's arm only bends one way. Or to really be specific, everybody's knee only bends one way because it's a dumb joint.
The tools always work if you know how to use it.
Yeah.
If you're holding the screwdriver backwards, then it ain't gonna work.
So I mean, so then the question becomes, what's more important, the tool or the information? You see, because tools always work. For example, if I take a Phillips head screwdriver and I go to take a railing off a wall and I turn that screw, right? Mm-hmm. And the head breaks on the screw. Did the tool fail or did the screw fail?
Yeah.
The screw failed. Yeah. The tool was working. Now I just need a combination of tools. Now I got to grab easy outs to finish the process.
Yeah.
So sometimes you're going to use one tool. Sometimes you're going to use a grouping of tools. But tools always work. So it might not get you where you want to go, that first tool that you're using, but it set up something else.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So it's just understanding how to put those together and then understanding what tools you actually need. So if I go outside and see my car tires flat, I'm going to go in my trunk and grab my jack. My jack will always lift the car, and it doesn't matter who uses it. I might use it to lift my car, change my tire, and then some young lady walks up to me who's 120 pounds and says, excuse me, I got a flat tire over there. Can I borrow your jack? Same size vehicle. Yeah, it'll work. Here, take it. Should that tool cease to work for her because she's a woman?
Mm.
It'll work for her because the tool will lift the car. That's what it's designed to do. Understanding the tool is going to allow me to be able to utilize the tool, right? So she finishes using it, and the tractor trailer's passing by with a flat tire. He goes, hey, could I borrow your jack? She goes, it's really not going to work for that. Yeah. There's a tool designed for that tractor trailer.
Yeah.
Right? A jack designed for that tractor trailer. It's just so understanding where or what tools you have in your toolbox. So I got a section in my toolbox that's designed for a 4-door Acura ILX. And then I got a section in my toolbox that's designed for the tractor trailer we call Matt.
Yeah, another.
You know what I'm saying? Or Ned or something. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. So in other words, it's not so important just to know the tools in your box, but when a situation, what tool a situation might require, right?
Exactly.
You can look at, okay, this is something that this tool needs, because those are two different. I could totally see what you're saying. Those are two totally different understandings.
So think about this. Ben Eddy, right? Ben Eddy is a 10th Planet black belt, right? At the time, he was a brown belt, though. He's a 10th Planet black belt who, if you look at him, you're like, this kid? You know, he's like one of the geekiest kids you ever see in your life, right? No disrespect by any means. I'm just in appearance, you know.
Yeah.
So he joins the EBI. Matter of fact, he was an alternate in the EBI, Eddie Bravo Invitational. He ends up fighting Wilson Hayes or something like that, right?
I'm not familiar.
Well, he ended up fighting this gentleman who was a UFC fighter, this little human tank.
Yeah.
And Ben Eddy said in the interview after, he's like, well, I saw him and I knew what technique would work on him.
Just by watching him move.
Just by watching him.
Yeah.
Just his build and everything. He's
okay.
He said, this won't work, so I know I have to go this route with him.
Yeah.
And now this is a kid.
That's that's actually really cool. There's a level of understanding you start to acquire just by sight.
So there's this kid who is just a jujitsu geek, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this high level, I throw up the quotes, high level, because that term really bothers me.
Yeah,
high level,
that's very vague.
UFC guy, right, who's fought the top competition in the world going against each other. Ben Eddy's an alternate who comes in and beat him.
Wow. Jeez.
You understand?
Yeah.
He beat him. I believe he beat him with a dead orchard.
That's a good way.
Yes.
Explain that. What's
dead orchard is when both arms are in a triangle.
Oh, okay.
Triangle choke.
Essentially, he submitted him.
Yes, he submitted him. Now, that situation addressed a variety of questions. The thing is, so what exactly is high level?
Yeah.
If this kid, who never really done anything in his life but trained jujitsu, and he's just, he's really not a UFC fighter. He's not this. He's not that. He went in and took out this man who trained high level competition, with high level competition.
Took out somebody, in other words, who had more exposure than he did.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty breakthrough.
So hopefully people stop using that.
Yeah,
I think it really depends on the domain for sure. As much as I hate bringing it up, the Ben Askren Jake Paul thing.
Thank you.
Right?
I was thinking about that too.
Yeah,
that whole thing pissed me off.
Well, I mean, it's just like
he threw the fight.
Maybe, but you can clearly see
that. What
Ben
are we
Askren...
doing right now?
Okay. Listen, I'm just gonna say this. He didn't throw the fight during the fight. Look how he came to the fight. He looked like he just ate and somebody woke him up like, "Yo, Ben, we gotta go." And he, okay, what time is it? And it's like he looks like he just got there on a full stomach.
Looks aside.
You know what I mean?
We all know that Ben Askren was a little bit out of shape, but aside from that, just Jake Paul just boxing for a few years and Ben Askren going into a boxing ring.
Yeah.
Ben Askren was a high level competitor.
Yeah, I'm not saying MMA. Jake Paul isn't a decent boxer. I'm just saying that Ben Askren was.
Right. But Ben Askren is a high level competitor in UFC, right? He won lots of fights and he won lots of championships using a certain tool from his toolbox, which is wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But you take that tool away, and although he's still a high level competitor, he no longer has his best tool.
Yeah.
Right? And so now he's going into an arena where somebody else has maybe not the perfect tool for the job, but the tool that will get the job done.
Yeah.
And doesn't have the same tools.
Right. Well, you're putting in a carpenter and an electrician's job, something like that. That's a good point.
It's one thing. That's one reason why I'm really not into the sports side. I've fought in competitions, and I did point fighting when I was younger, green belt. The last tournament I fought in was an international tournament in Tokyo, Japan, called the Super Aikido, thrown by one of Gozo Shioda's top students, Sakurai Shihan. So I've done competition. I did it more because my instructor wanted me to, not because I'm not into competition. I'm into Well,
you were saying before that you're more fond of the more pragmatic understandings and utility of martial arts. Because let's be honest, it's more show than anything else. Like you were saying, somebody's being now considered or deemed high level.
Yeah.
But that's one for the show, and well, I think it's just for the show. Anybody who's coming up there and they want to make the numbers, especially if it's televised, it's like the greatest fighter of all time.
Yeah.
So
everybody's the greatest.
The greatest of all time.
One of the worst things in competition is to go against someone in competition that could never handle you in real life.
Yeah.
And they're walking around peacocking, and there's nothing worse than that. I'm not into that. Now, here's the thing. I train at extreme level in my training, and when you do that, you can always shed down to competition level. But when you train competition level and have to amp up for the extreme level, there becomes a problem.
Yeah.
And I spent 22 years teaching law enforcement across the state of Massachusetts. And
no kidding. So were you a police officer as well for a while?
Corrections officer for the Hampden County Sheriff's Department. And I was the Mass Sheriff's Association Defensive Tactics Instructor Trainer for the state. So I would ask people when they come in to the academies, one of the first things I'd ask, I'd say, hey, does anybody here have training? And they raise their hand. And I tell them, okay.
And you were working with other corrections officers and
yes.
stuff. Okay.
Yes. And and police.
And police, yeah.
And once I ask that question, I go around the room and see what they trained in, and then I tell them, all right, listen, what you do does not apply to this field. I'm just letting you know. So it's a good foundation, but now we have to help you understand how to use those tools for your newfound career. Very important that people understand that. If you go outside in, sub-zero weather wearing a bikini, it's hard to amp up.
Yeah.
To get warm enough but if you go overdressed, you could always shed down to the desired level.
Yeah.
So that's why I train for pragmatic purposes.
A lot. Yeah, I like that analogy a lot because that is to say that you cannot be over prepared for anything, especially in that field.
Just underprepared.
Yeah, you can only be underprepared, and that's a good point. And a lot of I think the problem with any form of law enforcement on the planet is that there often isn't enough education or exposure. I mean, I don't even really know what the training process is, but it's probably a little underwhelming, and I think most police officers admit to that.
Financial reasons, yes. A lot of departments don't have the funding and this and that. They allocate funds for stuff that really doesn't matter.
Right.
With that being said, it becomes more the individual than the department. You know the department's not going to support you financially to go get the training you need. You know that.
Yeah.
So it becomes the individual. I train every day. You understand? Within my field. And then I went through a career where when they couldn't handle something, they would come get me.
Yeah.
You understand? So,
and that was out of the luxury of it being a passion for you.
Exactly.
It's so unfortunate because most people don't have that passion in that field.
If you're in that field, though, I don't understand how you're in a field where you need a certain thing and you don't take it upon yourself to get that thing when they don't provide it for you.
Yeah.
That's the thing I used to stress to officers when they, if they made it through the academy at their graduation parties, I would tell them, listen, it's very important that you continue on this path.
Well, your journey starts now.
But you don't. What you see is an officer, and next thing you know, they graduate from the academy weighing 175 pounds.
Yeah.
2 years in their job, they're weighing 300 pounds. Their uniform looks like hell.
Yeah.
And,
that kind of goes back to what I was saying. It's sort of a letdown on the modern effect of the education system, and what it creates is people who are convinced that their education is over. And that is, I think, the biggest problem, is that going through the schooling process, whatever it may be, to whatever degree it was, whether you're a doctor or a master's or whatever, education and learning is something that should always be understood as a constant. It shouldn't be, all right, you're done. You're now a doctor, and there's nothing, you know what I mean? Like, obviously on the job, you might come in, and find some new things that you need to learn, but or depending on your profession, would be required continuing education units. But these are all things that don't seem to really incentivize the type of life structure, for instance, that you've done for yourself. And obviously, you've done it naturally because you, again, are you have the luxury of having within you that desire to continue. But a lot of the times, I don't think that desire is encouraged. I don't think people are encouraged to be students of life. Because if you go, okay, well, you're done. Now you're a police officer. Now you're a doctor. You know all there is to know. You might not.
It's encouraged by many people. I mean,
Well, you know what I mean? Within the education system itself. I mean, how often do you think, okay, so
It is. It's highly encouraged.
Okay.
It's just people are lazy.
Yeah.
Bottom line, people are lazy. A cop rather go to a Dunkin' Donuts than go,
right.
Sit there and
or just practice shooting.
Yeah,
that's like one thing you'll see is a lot of people, because it's very fun to shoot. So accuracy, and that's a great tool for the box. But like we were saying, that might not be always the best tool. Or, you know what I mean? Or say if you only train hands-on combat, might not be the best tool. Or something like that.
I mean, there's it runs the gamut. It's always encouraged within those fields, within the world. I mean, people speak about it all the time. Education, everything's a learning experience, everything's this, but people just get lazy.
I think a lot of times some of the most important things to learn or to master are very uncomfortable processes. I think martial arts specifically, a lot of the things that you go through, if you really want to achieve like a mastery or any degree of mastery, it's going to be taking your time, it's going to be taking your energy, it's going to be taking your blood, your sweat, and your tears, and that's a high price to pay, and not everybody's willing to pay it.
That's a good point, and that's kind of what I'm saying, is that the process itself was so grueling to learn. Most people didn't really like it. Nobody goes, "Oh, that was so much fun." You know what I mean? And it's mostly because you have an overwhelming amount of. I wonder rather if it's just because it's an overwhelming amount of trivial things you need to remember and then regurgitate to become a scholar per se, and so the effect of learning something doesn't have the thrills of discovering it. You know what I mean? And when you, for instance, are embarking on, learning new martial arts, and you could apply this to anything, of course. There's a level of refinement in that where you will fail multiple times, and it's getting not, no one will ever really be that comfortable with failure, but it's not like it's going to be something that deters you from going forward. And I think a lot of the times the education system does not reward failure. In fact, it brings you backwards. Failure always brings you backwards within the education system. And so, in real life, failure is pretty much the kick in the ass to say, hey, try a little harder. Or
this is where I kind of differ. And a lot of things I believe, or I've come to understand within the martial community, is not popular within the martial community. And people, I'm like the guy that everybody tries to go at,
Yeah.
But one of the most powerful scenes I've ever seen in a movie was in the movie 300, when the Hunchback, did you see that movie?
Yes, that was a good one. That was a really good movie.
Was up there on the mountain there with Leonidas, and he says, "Great King, I'd like to join your ranks." And Leonidas says, "Lift your shield."
He couldn't.
And he couldn't lift his shield. And he goes, "You haven't learned. Your father didn't teach you the phalanx or whatever he says." And he goes, "The weakest point within there will destroy the entire thing and all this. Yeah. So you're not designed for this. You're not made for this."
Yeah.
It's kind of like, and I was trained by Japanese men.
Yeah.
Old Japanese men. And when I went to Japan, on my pilgrimage, one of my instructors took me to Japan. I went and trained and fought in a tournament, the last tournament, 1996, when I pretty much retired from competition. Within the Japanese community, they have like caste system or class system. You have farmers, you have noblemen, you have samurai, that whole thing.
Yeah.
Not everybody's designed to be,
right.
everything.
Exactly.
So within my dojo itself, I'm extremely rough for a reason. Not in a malicious way, but rough nonetheless.
Right.
So somebody will call me and say, "Hey, I always wanted to train or whatever." "Yeah, how old are you?" And they'll say, "I'm 35. "Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what stopped you?" "Well, time, this, that." "All right.
Yeah.
Now I got to test and see if you really want to train."
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because everybody wants a black belt, but nobody really wants to earn it.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So
yeah, and that's so true with a lot of things. It's like everybody can glamorize something, but do they want to put in the work that's required to get that is a different question.
So it starts when they call me. I start affecting their mind.
Yeah.
So I tell them, "Listen, it's my job to make you quit. It's your job to show me what you're made of."
Yeah.
The problem is I'm phenomenal at my job.
Yeah. There you go.
So they come in, right? If they make it past that statement and they come in, then I have them fill out their application, make sure the waiver is the last thing I have them fill out. And the stuff I wrote on it makes them think, what the hell is going on here? So they sign that. Then I invoice them. Then they come in the dojo. And then we just start training.
Yeah.
And I'm not teaching them anything at this point. I'm just testing to see what type of technique or skill they have or heart they have right now. And if they get past that phase, then we can start training.
Yeah.
And my students are always there with me. My students who have been with me for 15 years. I got a student that's been with me for like 30 years.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying? So they're with me to show that these guys have went through what this guy is going through now.
Yeah.
Most people don't make it through the first class.
No
they end up leaving.
You see a lot of turnover in that class, that first.
Oh, a lot.
Yeah.
So then when they start, it's kind of rough. Yeah, I told you that in the beginning. But I say, these guys went through it.
Yeah.
They came out the other side better for it. So it's really not for me. So he couldn't lift his shield.
Yes. Yeah.
So he's gone.
Right.
So out of, say, 30 people might come in, one will stay.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's why I have only 11 black belts.
Yeah.
I've awarded.
I think at that point, though, just with that being the case, I think it does justice to the symbol of the black belt that you provide.
Exactly. And my first book talks about that. It talks about The first article in that book, the book's called Insight 101, The Way of Big Power. It came out in 2012, and it says, "So you have a black belt? Who cares?"
Mm.
That's awesome.
It-
Yeah, Jameson was telling me. Did you get a chance to read his book?
No, I didn't get a chance to.
I gotta check that out, Randy. And I forgot to mention you're also an author too. It's funny because it's amazing how much you've done. I mean, for crying out loud, it's. I don't think I've probably interviewed anybody who's done what you've done in any regard as long as you've done it. You know what I mean? And of course, I mean rather on top of it, been an author of two. How many books do you have out?
Well,
Just to talk.
I
About that for a
have
sec.
2 published.
Yeah.
I just came out with a 3rd book called From the Ground Up, a teacher's manual. But here's the thing. So I was going to submit it to my publisher. But then my instructor, Norikudo Sensei, has a book that was written by his instructor that his instructor prints out himself to give to respective students. Depends on if they, I don't know what his criteria is on who he presents it to. And I was thinking, because the book From the Ground Up, the information in it is really stuff I really want to safeguard.
Right.
So I was saying either I'm going to print this out myself for my students, or I'm going to get it published. But I'm leaning more towards just printing it out myself. So that's what I did.
Yeah.
I kept that for that. So I have 2 published, but I've written about 4 or 5 books.
And still working on publishing them, or how's the?
Well, the one that I'm working on now, I'm going to publish. It's a poetry book with my daughter.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So my daughter's name is Randy as well.
No way. Okay.
Yes. So it's father and daughter poetry. And
Okay.
our name, the way we spell our name together, when I write it together, it's R-A-N-D. Her name ends with an I, mine with a Y. So I just write Randy with a Y and then dot the Y.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That is really cool. I wanted to. You mentioned you had gone on a pilgrimage to Japan, and I didn't want to stop you in the middle of your story, but that's crazy. Talk about that just a little bit. So, what do you mean by pilgrimage, and how long did you spend in Japan?
Well, all right. So I went for 10 days. But what it was my instructor, Takeshi Okamoto Sensei, who's my Aikijutsu instructor, he wanted to take a group to Japan, or a couple of us to Japan, to fight in this tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was under him, he had us fight within the dojo to figure out who would be the best to take. So myself and a partner of mine, his name is Kari McKenzie. He's a Kaju Kimbo, Kempo Karate black belt, as well as a black belt in Aikijutsu under Takeshi Okamoto Sensei. He and I got selected after all the fights were done. We got selected to go. And this other gentleman who's an Aikido instructor out of like Worcester or somewhere over there, named Steve Kalil. So we went to Japan with Okamoto Sensei. And while we're there, we trained with a variety of different people, and then fought in this internet. When we went over there, it made the tournament an international tournament.
Oh, wow.
And then after that, we were supposed to go back, or I was supposed to go back every year after that. They requested, but my job at the time, when I got back, I got the job at the Hampden County, and then they wouldn't release me the next year to go because I was on probation, and it was just a mess. So it just fell by the wayside. But I went and trained for intense training for 10 days and fought in tournament.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What was Japan like? I was supposed to go last year. Didn't get to go. I really want to go.
Phenomenal.
I've always wanted to go.
I think anybody who studies the martial sciences, and like I said, my system is karate. My main love is karate, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But I think everybody who studies karate needs to go to Japan or Okinawa.
Yeah.
Okinawa, they focus more on Goshin Jitsu, which is self-defense oriented karate, and Japan made it more tournament oriented karate, made more tournament oriented karate. So I think everybody should go there, and whatever, respective system you study, you should take a pilgrimage to where that originated.
Yeah.
So Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu going over to Brazil.
There's so much so many profound things to be said about just learning or getting to understand different cultures, because you actually don't effectively understand the culture that you live in if you don't understand any other cultures. That's one huge thing that I feel like has really supplemented my perspective on a lot of things, because if, say, whatever country you live in is the only country you've ever lived in, you don't know what it's like.
Yeah.
You don't even know what it's like to live in your own country, I would argue. And that's because you have no perspective. I mean, that's the foundation of triangulation. I mean, you find something based off its relationship with distance between two other objects. You know what I mean, or one other object, or something like that. My point is, getting to go, I would assume, to the origin of what it is that you're learning.
It gives you better insight into the art itself, because there's a lot of language barriers where people misinterpret things. For example,
did they speak much English over there, real quick? I mean,
that
must have been tough.
It was kind of tough. But they want to learn English.
Yeah,
they would take you and move you into their home.
No shit.
Yeah, and you teach them English, and they'll take care of you.
That's fucking awesome.
It doesn't matter if you have a degree in that or not. It's just the fact that you can speak English.
Well, I think how fun it would be to learn Japanese in that same process.
Yeah, it's
because the better they get at speaking English. At least when I learned how to speak Portuguese, my grandparents knew a little bit, and my cousins actually knew more because they were in college. And so I would just ask them, "Hey, how do you say this?" And then they would say it, and then I would always remember. I mean, I feel like you could do the same thing if you just made friends from a different country, and if they knew at least a little bit, you could just start teaching each other.
But when it comes to the arts, though, there's a lot of misconceptions within the art because of the language barrier. And when you go over there, you see and you experience it to a deeper level, and I would say a better level. For example, the concept of blocking.
Yeah.
Name me one street fight you've seen where somebody blocked something.
Yeah.
Or you've been in.
Right.
So why in karate do they teach blocking? And in karate, they'll say jodan uke. Jodan means upper level.
Right.
Uke, they say, for blocking. Uke doesn't mean block.
Okay.
So, is it really a block?
What's it mean?
It means to receive.
Oh, okay. So it's what it would be a practice of knowing how to take impact.
It's
sort of like falling.
To block something is an end in itself.
Yeah.
Right? But to receive it, when you receive something, you don't have to give it back.
Yeah.
So you see how it takes on a totally different meaning?
Yes, I can totally see where you're going with, yeah.
So one
thing, sorry to interrupt, the Tao Te Ching is a lot like this with the various translations, how with the various translations, they can say very different things because it was written in like original Chinese, and so translating it to English, finding words that mean the same thing is often difficult.
It usually limits it.
Well, it's tough too. Is that Chinese Tao Te Ching, or is it Japanese? It's Chinese.
It's Chinese.
Yeah. So both Chinese and I believe Japanese have words that we don't. So it takes like a sentence to describe that word.
So you're like sitting there trying to think, well, I don't got a word that exactly fits this. What's the closest thing?
Yeah.
And then when you find the closest thing, you miss certain parts of the essence of the original.
Our words are one thing.
Yeah.
Theirs usually describe a process.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Much like the 10th planet system. when you look at something, when you hear a term that we use within the 10th planet language, it usually speaking on a process, not a thing. You know what I'm saying? That's what I encourage people to do. That's a part of understanding the technique of the respective action as opposed to just performing an action.
Yeah.
You know? And within karate, there's a lot of things that happen that just don't make any sense because that people perpetuate this day and age because they don't understand. So being in Japan helped me see a lot of those things, you know?
Well, there is a massive difference between the Eastern and Western world, I would imagine, just from a theological standpoint. I mean, look at how theology has affected people in this part of the world, Europe and Americas, for instance, versus Asia in and of itself. All those religions are theologies are far more encompassing towards the process, where we're more focused on the parts.
A lot of things that originated in the East were not religions. They were
lifestyles. They're ways of life, kind of.
And that's we made them religions.
Right,
when
right.
They came
Religion
over here.
is a very Western term. Right? I totally agree with you. And that's funny because I always laugh when people are talking about, well, I'm kind of like a Buddhist, and it's like, well, just because you know about Buddhism doesn't mean it's like saying I'm a karate. You know, you know what I mean? Like you have to do those things, and you don't really you just sort of subscribe to the way, and you'd probably have nothing because you don't need it's more like psychotherapy than anything.
Yes, that's like when I talk to people who say, well, I took karate. And I always write about and talk about to people. I say, I don't like talking to people who took karate. I like talking to people who studied karate. And they're like, oh, what do you mean by that? And as far as karate goes, like say judo. Judo is 100% judo.
Yeah.
Karate is 20% judo.
Really? Oh wow.
Aikijutsu is 100% aikijutsu. Karate is 20% aikijutsu. Kabuto, which are ancient weapons, are 100% kabuto. Karate is 20%.
Oh shit.
Tegumi is 100% tegumi, which is Okinawan wrestling / grappling. But karate is 20%. Those are all the things that make up karate.
Wow.
Do you understand? And then karate, or boxing, I should say, striking is 100% boxing. Right?
I feel like karate is underwhelmingly
represented.
Yes,
it definitely
is. It really is. Because you're just thinking of
punching and kicking.
Yeah,
but it's so many things. Now every system, right, or every system is designed a certain way. But let me tell you this: there's no limited system. Meaning this: every system is about majors and minors.
Yeah.
So in karate, they major in thrusting, punching, kicking,
right,
and striking. That's their major. Everything else is a minor in it, and it uses its minor to achieve its major. Okay, so it'll grab a joint lock to immobilize you so it can strike you. It'll throw you to the ground so it can strike you, uncontested striking. They will grapple you, neutralize your ability to move so they can strike you uncontested.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Every art is like that. In judo, it majors in tachiwaza or throws.
Yeah.
And minors in everything else. And it'll use its minor to achieve its major. Aikijutsu majors in joint manipulation and pressure point application. And it'll use its minors to achieve its major. All arts are like that.
Yeah.
You know, but you'll hear people talk about all the time that, well, karate doesn't have grappling in it. No, it actually does. It's not that it doesn't have it in it. It's whether
its only focus.
Whether you can understand how to use your karate curriculum in a more complete manner.
Yeah.
It's not that it's not a complete art. It's you understanding how to use it in a complete manner.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's a really, really awesome breakdown of that. I like that because I never knew that personally, and it certainly plays into the effect of just being even halfway to the level that you're at, I mean, I think that would really accentuate a lot of people's perspective on reality. It's one of those many tools we can have in the modern age that would mitigate fear in a lot of instances. You know what I mean? And how I'm just thinking to myself as you're explaining this, how important it is for people to have a better understanding of how to defend themselves. Because it is more important to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. And I think that's that hits home probably the furthest in that instance, because when it comes to defending yourself, or having at least the ability to defend yourself, I think would give people a lot more levity within the.
I'm gonna give you the secret to using any art in a pragmatic fashion right now.
Okay.
Right now.
Let's get it.
Okay, you ready for this?
Yeah. Exclusive.
All right. Here's the thing. It doesn't matter what tools you collect for your toolbox. Okay? Doesn't matter. But when you collect those tools, right? The only thing you need to understand is this one basic rule, and I dubbed it the basic universal principle of technique interpretation and pragmatic usage. Okay. The first action or combination of action you execute should have the ability and or probability of neutralizing your opponent's ability to continue to fight or immobilize the opponent entirely. So, if the use of your tools does not satisfy that one basic rule, it's not designed for self-protection.
Okay.
Okay? So, let's put it like this. Now, the situation is going to tell you what you need to do, and the person will tell you what they want you to do. So let's just say I'm standing in front of somebody and I tell them, listen, that's close enough. Please don't come any closer. And they're like 3 or 4 feet away from me. That's close enough. What do you want to talk about? Is there a problem?
Yeah.
Now, in order for them to hurt me, they have to come touch me. Right? So they have to negotiate this space to hurt me. In that time, I can do anything to them because they have to negotiate the space, as opposed to us being chest to chest, jawing back and forth at each other. And next thing you know, they hook off on me and I don't have enough time to react. You see what I'm saying?
Field of view is compromised because he's right in your face.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as long as I keep him back there, I just effectively utilized my understanding in a self-protection situation, self-defense situation. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, listen, that's close enough. And come on, man, what are we doing? Now they take a step, right, towards me. I say, please don't come any closer. I'm going to take this sign of aggression. I feel uncomfortable. They take another step. I already set the groundwork and told them, listen, don't come any closer. Now they're telling me they're a predator. I just learned their intentions. They're attacking me with their intentions every time they take a step. So now I'm justified in hitting them or whatever, because I can't escape this room. All right, so now he takes a step. So in the process of him coming towards me, he's thinking, put one foot in front of the other. Regardless if he's consciously thinking it, subconsciously he's thinking, put one foot in front of the other, so he walks successfully. You don't really believe that, but this is what happens. If you're sitting in the middle of the mall and you're looking at somebody walking down the steps while you're in the food court, what do you think they're thinking? I hope I don't trip down these steps and look stupid in front of all these people. So they're actually concentrating on walking. So when somebody's walking towards you, they're walking. When they get in range to do something, they're going to lower themselves. They're going to anchor themselves. They're going to cock back that punch. You see how the processes are separated and different? Okay. I know that. So as they're walking, I'm like, all right, I'm going to blitz them. So I blitz them real quick. He lowers himself before he even swings. In that time, I could do anything. I can kick him. I can punch him.
In other words, you use the environment to your advantage instead of letting him use the environment to his advantage.
Yeah, everything's set up. Just the whole dynamic.
And the environment could be distance between you and the other person.
It's not the environment. It's the anatomy of the situation. Anatomy is the understanding. That's what anatomy means. Understanding the breakdown of it.
Well, I'm comparing it to a lot of philosophical emphasis that a lot of Eastern traditions have in recognizing that environment is just as much a part of you as your body.
Oh, absolutely.
And especially in the West, we remove ourselves. The environment is our enemy here, but in other cultures, I've at least I've read about or listened to about, and there's a lot of emphasis on recognizing that the environment is a part of you, and when you recognize that, it's much easier. At least, and it's something I've actually really appreciated about a very mild understanding of martial arts, that you take your environment into account and you understand that it can be and probably always should be considered an extension of who you are and what you are. Because, like you said before, that person dictating where he is within the space around you or depending on the environment around you is everything, and is in relation to where you are.
Judo is built off of that.
Yeah,
they believe that the ground is a lot harder than anything they own in their body.
Yeah,
so they'll thrust you to the ground. They'll throw you to the ground.
Yeah,
and most people, part of the effectiveness of your technique is also determined by how your opponent deals with that technique, reacts to that technique. Hence, Kani Basami. The way he braced himself and kind of stiffened up, it broke. You see what I'm saying? Gentleman had his leg broken. Yep.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, is that the one you sent me?
No. So,
was this where you guys were?
Break down what Kani Basami is.
Kani Basami is a crab claw technique. It's a
with your legs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, scissoring technique.
Okay.
Crab scissor technique, and
you want to bring the mic up just a little more?
Yeah.
It's all right.
What's happening is it's like when you're standing there, somebody comes up and scissors you and takes you down, you know, with their legs. Well, the way it was banned in judo competitions.
What's it called again?
Kani Basami.
Okay.
All right, crab scissors.
Yeah.
And this gentleman
got that sushi a lot, so I'm like, that sounds familiar.
Yeah,
crab sushi. It's so good.
try Kani salad. You'll love that. You'll love that. So when it happened, most people stiffen up and then their legs end up breaking.
Okay.
Right from that.
Fuck.
So
but was it break at the femur or the knee?
Yes.
Fuck.
This one was like the tibia and the fibula.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think he broke the femur, but probably.
Listen, it can many things.
Yeah.
People's hips go because of it. You know, it could be anything. It's how you react to it.
Yeah.
That's going to determine. Any technique is like that. You know, if somebody stiffens up when I kick them, I break their ribs. If somebody harmonizes with the kick, it becomes something they're falling off balance. It all depends on them. You know, so you can't say what it's actually going to break. You just, yes.
Oh,
whatever happens. You know, and that's the self-defense side.
Did that happen at the gym?
That was in 10th Planet HQ, so that's California, right?
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah. So, you know, that's the self-defense side of it. You know, that's perfect if that was in the street because the fight ended immediately. But in competition and you know,
that's certainly
training, you don't want that to happen.
Very unfortunate.
You know, so within that, you know, in the self-defense side of things, like I said, so as the guy approaches me, if I blitz through from a blue range where I can't be struck as they're walking towards me, I blitz through the red range where he could hit me, I can hit him, and I clinch with him. What did I just do?
You just initiated.
Yeah. Well, he initiated with his action, but the clinch itself neutralized his ability to hit me because what's the natural reaction when somebody grabs you? When you grab, if I grabbed you, what would be the natural reaction?
Pull away.
Nope.
No.
Grab me back.
Oh, grab me
before
back.
You pull away.
I'd pull away. I'm a fast runner.
I
wouldn't even try fighting you, dude. I'll tell you right now.
before people pull away, right? What they do is they'll grab, and you don't believe. They'll grab, and then they'll think they're processing through their OODA loop. They observe the situation, orient themselves to the situation, make a decision, then act.
OODA loop?
Yep, OODA loop.
Brain?
Yep. And then they'll start pulling away. They'll start pulling away or trying to strike you or whatever they made the decision to do. They'll start doing it. So in that process of them processing through their OODA loop, I go into my next move. Now I just jog them back into the O.
Yeah.
They're observing a new situation.
And the big difference too between you and that person is more often than not is that you have strategy. They're just energy and force. You know,
Exactly.
pretty much 45 minutes of that at 10th Planet for me is just move my body as long as I can.
Strategy and technique. Strategy and technique.
Yeah.
Tools.
I definitely, and also like your training allows your mental processes to happen so much faster than when they're reacting.
Yeah,
exactly. That's exactly it.
Yeah. Well, I do like the pragmatic touch, like you're talking about, because that is the foundation of it in a lot of sense, in a lot of ways, is that being able to. Now, obviously, it probably isn't very often that you. I mean, for you, it's not a very good. I couldn't really say that truthfully because for you, you've done a lot of jobs that probably required that on the daily.
Yeah, I just retired from the jail February 20th of last year.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
And I just teach full time now and write full time.
That's amazing. Now. So you stuck with it all the way through and got just went for the pension?
Yeah, got my pension.
That's awesome. Nice early retirement.
Yeah. So
dude, that is so cool. Holy shit. I was just about to ask you, what do you do now? And so you're just living your dream.
Yeah, just teach and write. Yeah. And teach and write. That's all I do.
That actually brings me to a question that I wanted to ask you. So, like at this point, like what are you personally like researching? What do you find most compelling to seek and discover more about at this point?
Just efficiency.
Yeah.
Just complete efficiency, just complete understanding of. So if you ever watch me, right, train when we're doing fundamentals class or whatever we're doing, right, I will see something, or even watching YouTube. I process martial artists constantly, and things they're doing, and Pat will teach something, and I'll go, no, go ahead, do it on me, and my partner, I'll have them doing it and just processing it. And I can figure out how to stay safe from it. I figure out how to do it more efficiently, and just my mind works that way. The information intrigues me, and how I learn how to use these tools or can process how to use these tools in the most efficient manner keeps me motivated to continue training. It's just incredible. When somebody is, let's say, I don't know, just a huge, I'm 51 years old. Yeah. I'm not matching these kids. Matt, how old is Matt?
Matt's like 30.
Yeah. 30 years old. He's 300 pounds.
Yeah.
But he's not fat. He's just 300 pounds. Huge. I don't know what he ate growing up, but whatever it is.
He's a heavy guy.
Right?
Yeah.
But
you don't
just
want
red meat and milk.
But I can, we worked out one morning and I lift him up. I'm throwing him without feeling his weight.
Yeah.
That's the thing. My instructor, Norikudo Sensei, is 84 years old.
Yeah.
And he can throw people like, it's
being thrown by somebody that large too. That's a fucking throw.
So it's just a research of, and information gathered.
I can see why, or not why, because it's more of a how. As time goes on, obviously the goal is to become more and more efficient with anything and everything. All processes try to strive for that. But given that, of course, your age and the competition, the more efficient you are, the more capable you are at keeping up, because you have, and I think that's really what age is experience meets wisdom sort of a thing, and so you can kind of be more wise in your choices, refine your strategy. There you go.
I was just thinking about like this Taoist metaphor that I heard years ago that I always loved. So like a master butcher doesn't cut through the meat. He doesn't cut through what he's cutting through. He passes the blade in the space between the joints, right, where there is no resistance, and that's sort of what it's like mastering a judo throw, where you're not forcing the throw, you're not throwing them, you're just
creating an environment with the least resistance to accomplish what you need.
Strength is like nitrous in a race car. It's not something that is used throughout the race. It's there if you need it. But a true master at driving never uses the nitrous. It's just there. You know what I'm saying? Last 10 seconds of the race, he might hit that button if he needs it, but he never needs it. Strength is like that. I don't use strength when I do things. I use technique.
Yes.
So,
where somebody might compensate with strength instead.
And strength is short-lived. If I hand you a 35-pound dumbbell and have you hold it up like this with your elbow bent, about 10 seconds into it, you're going to start shaking and it's going to go down. But if you take it and just hold it straight down, that's structure over strength. You see what I'm saying? I could walk around like this all day. So, you know, Master Kudo proves it all the time. He's 84 years old, and the stuff he can do, I'm like, how the hell? You understand what I mean?
It's funny because that same principle is applied a lot in what I do. I'm a strength and conditioning coach, and we focus on functional strength, essentially. So that's really what it is. It's functional strength is might be a miswording because I think it comes down to structural strength. You know, using your body because for instance, if I were to have us do something as simple as a squat right now, and we're probably not all masters at doing a back squat. I'm not, and I teach it sometimes, but I don't do a lot of it myself. But I will say that in my experience, you'll find that people are much weaker due to lack of confidence and obviously lack of understanding of how their body works. As soon as you understand how to utilize your body's structural integrity, your muscles are not that they're any stronger, but you're using them at the best possible point of leverage to carry themselves through point A to point B. And I think that it probably applies in a lot of instances, especially when you're trying to decipher the most strategic strategy rather to submit somebody or deal with a situation.
Yeah, it's just everything about it. And if I wanted to rebuild a porch, right, I would take some 2x4s, right, prop them up at an angle to the roof, and then knock down the porch. What's more imposing, the 2x4s or the roof? All the weight the roof is carrying. Right?
Yeah. The roof.
The roof is just massively overwhelming to these 2x4s. What allows the 2x4s to hold them up?
The structure.
The structure, the angle, right? Yeah. There you go. Now, if I wrote female on the 2x4, does it matter?
Fall apart.
It's the structure holding them up. It doesn't matter, Same when we go with getting somebody off of us in the mount, when we blast up with our hips and then straighten our arms, right? And then we bring our knees to our chest and lower them down. Now we're in butterfly.
Yeah.
You see it? It doesn't matter if you're a male or female. You blast with your hips up for that split second and then straighten your arms locked out. It doesn't matter how much weight.
If I were to try to bend your arm and you're locked out like that, it'd be really hard versus trying to bend your arm if it was here.
Exactly.
That's a real tough fight. Like I could most people could bend somebody's arm more if it was right here.
Exactly.
Instead of you're bracing for a straight.
And it doesn't matter if it's a child, doesn't matter if it's a female. A straight arm is a straight arm.
Yeah, it's anatomy.
Yeah. Structure over strength.
Yeah.
And every technique has that whole dynamic behind it. When you see you're playing with your girlfriend and you're straddled over her waist and you got her arms pinned down to the ground, you're leaning on her. She's trying to lift her arms off the ground. She can't do it. But if she just made a snow angel,
everything's different.
Your head would fly down to hers and she'd lift her head, headbutt you in your nose, game's over. You couldn't, because you're pressing down, you're not expecting energy coming down like this, like a snow angel.
It's a good comparison. I know somebody who also actually teaches martial arts self-defense to women, and I feel like it's not something that has built itself an appeal that is we'll say substantial enough to get people really interested. And you know that, and I think that's one of the biggest concerns is a lot of females specifically are under trained to deal with certain situations. You know what I mean?
It's because most courses,
men are too, but it's like sometimes depending on where you are. I mean, I can't speak much on behalf of it because I'm not a female, but I would assume that there are a lot of situations that go underrepresented or misrepresented, where females are a lot more at odds and see conflict that men don't typically see.
Most courses teach unrealistic information and unusable techniques.
Yeah.
To women.
Yeah.
They teach things that most martial artists are not even comfortable with. Like they'll teach palm strikes and knee kicks and all this other stuff that.
And it's all super circumstantial. Like if a man is holding your neck like this, and then there's if he's got you there.
No.
How about like not get in that situation?
First of all, again, they teach unrealistic techniques. Any man who grabs a woman like this, right, will not keep their arms straight like this unless she's laying on the ground.
Right.
If she's laying on the ground and he got his arm straight and he's trying to choke her. But one thing that people don't realize is, when I teach rape prevention courses and things, I'll grab somebody by their throat and I'll say, okay, what do you notice? First of all, my hands are occupied.
Yeah.
Right? I want you to extend your hand past my face.
Yeah.
And they reach past and I go, you notice that? And they're like, yeah. Okay. So what are you going to do? And then they start trying to hit my wrists to get on. I said, no, it doesn't make sense. So if I'm choking you like this and if you can reach past my face, that means you can insert your finger that deep in my eye.
Yeah.
Do you think if you stick your finger in my eye, I'm going to continue choking you?
Yeah.
No, sir.
And if I close my eyelid, what's actually protecting my eyeball?
A little bit of skin.
Exactly.
Just a little bit.
Thin flap.
And 6 muscles in the back, which allow my eye to rotate, and an optic nerve going through the back. That's it. And a windshield wiper we call an eyelid. Your finger will go through that.
And that's not to mention a fingernail.
Yeah. So if I'm choking you, I deserve to have my eye removed. Right? So stop trying to hit my hands.
Yeah.
And just reach past my head or through my head and just jab me in the eye. If I don't let go after that,
that's a good point too.
I'm the Terminator.
When you're watching people exchange blows with stand-up fighting, that's always the case. Is you can tell the fighters are looking at how the hands and the legs are occupied in that circumstance, and how fucking silly it is in that, which is a good example, how silly it is when somebody's using both their hands to choke somebody, or do something like that.
Yeah, it just there's a lot of things that don't make sense within the martial realm or self-defense, courses, and I speak about that. I speak a lot about that. Matter of fact, on my Facebook page, it's under my name, Randy Haskins, but I do this thing.
Yeah, everything will be below, guys, too. You have a website as well. I was checking that out.
I call it Martial Insight, and I write. It's a blog on my page, and I write things. I just wrote something about self-defense itself.
Yeah.
Speaking on that, because May 22nd, I'm teaching a self-defense course at 10th Planet for this program that's
so cool. And I just want to mention how awesome it is that you do something like that. You know what I mean? That you continue, because I feel like that's such a it's an under advertised level of information or education or intelligence, whatever it is that you want to call it. I don't want to say that it isn't available to people, but most people aren't talking about getting their physical or self-defense education. It's not like a popular, and not because it's not actually popular, but it's not it doesn't have the appeal that other levels of education have. Well, so expressing the gratitude from just recognizing that, for just because I've just met you, but the fact that you do all this is just so awesome, because it's something so many people need. I mean, there's never been a time where I've talked about it or learned about it. I'm like, I kind of would like to do something more along those lines, or understand better those things,
There's a lot of different programs that I'm involved in. For the Belchertown court system, Eastern Hampshire District Court system, this probation officer created this program where women who are on probation, it's called the Womanhood Program.
Yeah.
Women who are on probation, this woman probation officer, Gina Sanderson, created this program where women who are on probation have to complete a 10-week course. Each week, a different subject is offered. And if they complete this course, the third week is usually self-defense, and I teach that. If they graduate from the course, they get time off of their probation.
Oh, cool.
So I've been doing that for 5-6 years. I teach privately, like I said, self-defense courses and, teach in my dojo. And I teach law enforcement as well within my dojo as well. I retired from teaching across the state. Just
it
so
goes,
many things.
In the event of talking about this and learning about it and getting an insight on what you do, I mean, I keep sort of taking stabs at the education system, but again, it's one of those things where it is just so disappointing. Now more on the selective subjects that you kind of get taught. Never in school do you learn about self-defense.
Yeah, except Springfield College. College.
Did they?
18 years.
In college, though?
I've been teaching at Springfield College. Self-defense 1, self-defense 2, karate 1, and karate 2.
Well, I guess I'm referring more to like K through 12. It's more that
I agree.
The mandatory K through 12. Everybody has in the state of Massachusetts, it's law, and you're going. I mean, I listened to this really interesting not debate, but there was a conversation with like Timothy Leary back in like 1969 with a few other like predominant philosophers. I think Alan Watts was in there too. It was really cool to see him in these social advocates of their time speak on behalf of many different systems that are taking place within society. And the education system was one of them, where it really is sad, for lack of better words, that there isn't really any education being taught. I mean, you don't remember anything from K through 12, really. Maybe the people who your teachers were, maybe there was one thing or two that was interesting, but how useful are those subjects compared to self-defense, compared to love, compared to growing your own food or making your own clothes or making your own shelter? You don't understand any of those aspects at all. Even physical education really wasn't physical education. You learned how to play basketball
or dodgeball
or
something.
Dodgeball.
Yeah. You're right, and that's another great thing about the Japanese school systems, Okinawan school systems. Anko Itosu Sensei, back in 16th century, introduced martial arts or karate itself to the school systems on Okinawa. He was the first one to introduce it, and when he introduced it, he was teaching the instructors of the school, and they taught their students.
Yeah.
And it's an integral part of the Japanese school system, and they go to school 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So it's pretty impressive.
It really is. I mean, I'm just thinking about how many amazing ways it would affect society in an advantageous way, because the effect of people making emotional or irrational decisions usually comes from either fear or inability. So then that affects their emotions and people being so unable to not only express themselves, which the schooling system has literally, I don't think ever taken a stab. I mean, you'd be really lucky to come out of school and be, I guess it's more just out of virtue of being who you are, to be a socially adequate person. But coming out of school and going into the real world, the likelihood of daily conflict, emotional and unrest, all these things are sort of products of inability and fear. And it's like if I don't know, I just
very true.
I definitely think that martial arts teach you a lot beyond just the martial art itself.
Right, that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of discipline.
Jiu-jitsu specifically, I think one of the most important lessons is it teaches you that it's okay to lose because you're going to lose.
Right.
In jiu-jitsu, right? And it's okay to fail because you're gonna fail inevitably. I mean, nobody's perfect. And I think that's an extremely valuable lesson to learn, that you are not perfect, and neither is anybody else. And so, therefore, it's important to be understanding of not only other people's flaws, but of your own flaws.
Yeah.
helps adjust your own
But
expectation.
does somebody really fail in jujitsu? If you don't quit,
Well,
you
that's a
didn't
good
actually
point.
fail.
I think
Right.
I
Right.
understand what you're saying too, because failure, just like success, is subjective.
Yeah, you know.
Depending on what you think you're failing at or how you're failing is completely your perspective on what it is to fail. Same with success, same with happiness. You know what I mean? These types of things are value in general. We'll just say value as is a product of perspective.
Well, I definitely think, like, depending on your mindset, you could easily just exchange the word fail for learn.
Yes,
You know?
I think
Exactly,
that's very
exactly.
and that's what I'm saying. Also, in the education system, they teach you that you can that that failure is a dead end.
Like, that's how you learn. Like,
Right.
you do something and it doesn't work, and
Yeah.
you're like, oh, so there's more to it. And that
See?
provokes curiosity.
Right.
This world spends so much time trying to eliminate certain words like he and she, and
Yes.
they need to eliminate words like fail.
Yeah.
Because
and make new words. So there's no word. Actually, Jay, shout out to J'Anthony Maria for turning me on. He's reading this. I forget the name of the book, but it's a Buddhist book. And it mentioned in the book that there is no word. There is words for pity, for empathy, which are all structured around feeling bad for somebody or being caring towards somebody who's experiencing hardship or turmoil. But there is no word to express how you feel for somebody who has succeeded or something. You know what I mean? You could say, "Oh, I'm happy for you," but what's the opposite of pity?
I don't know. The word that comes to mind first is like admire, I guess.
Is
Sort
that?
of.
I admire
but
you.
It's close.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think there's
It's
a
like
word, at least in the
appreciate-
English
Not
language.
specifically. For
Envious.
Sure.
Yeah, but
envious has that negative connotation.
Yeah, you're right.
You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
yeah,
So, like,
yeah.
what is the exact opposite of pity?
Yeah.
Maybe there is a word, and I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, or rather, wording it correctly in how it was delivered in the book that he was reading. But in other words, we don't. Even if there was a word, it's not like you can really feel bad for somebody, but it's not
To really
that
feel
easy.
good for somebody.
Happy for somebody. So like take how you feel in the climax of your success. And we all have moments like that where we feel like yes. You know what I mean?
Even like proud, like sort of like
proud is a good word.
Connotates ownership, though. I feel like there's a sense of ownership in being proud of something.
Right. Pride is probably the opposite of pity. That might be a good point. But how much of it do you feel? Because we feel much deeper from an empathetic or pitiful or pity standpoint than we would for somebody who truly is succeeding. You don't really, you're not typically brought to tears. Maybe if it's your child, I would assume, but it isn't. It still isn't as we'll say ubiquitous. Everybody pities
crazy,
other people.
Man, is I feel like just chaos sells, like negativity sells. Like if you watch
if it bleeds,
news,
it leads.
That outweighs the good.
If it bleeds, it
news,
leads.
Man, the news, like
the news is really.
News?
I hate the news so much. I really feel like that's really a great starting point. But what was I saying regarding also the education system is that it hasn't also changed since it was developed post-industrial age. Yeah. It's the same. Sitting in a classroom and listening to somebody, and furthermore, this is one of the most interesting aspects, and I think it ties into essentially the way you would even conduct yourself as a teacher, as a master in these instances, is that within an organization like an educational environment, the people who run that environment are those who keep track of the paperwork, not the ones who are producing the service. For instance. So now you have this extremely backward system where the accounting and the receipts for what is being done is more important than what is being done. And how backwards that is. So you have teachers who cannot find a new way to teach because the curriculum doesn't allow that for them to get to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Right.
next level is determined by the people who aren't teaching.
Right.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
if you try to find a new way, if
Yes.
you do have a new way, then you have the
Be-
same mindset that you see in our Senate and in our Congress,
Yeah.
the Republicans versus the Democrats,
Yeah.
where anybody tries to do something, you have this whole other side. It's like, whoa, hold on, that's not our idea, so
Yeah.
that's not gonna fly.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
You
you,
know?
you then resort to spitefulness and vindictiveness in your decisions based off of your environment.
I fought that within the law enforcement community for my entire career.
Yeah, the people who weren't doing the work were the
Yeah.
ones making the decisions on
Yeah.
those who were doing the work.
Yeah.
Isn't that so crazy?
And you know,
That's one of the most backward, fundamental, structural things that is perpetuated in our society for the longest time.
I would be teaching, and you know, I'm teaching from experience and the level within the law enforcement community. People get sent to a 2-week course, 3-week course, whatever it is, and they come out and they're defensive tactics instructors.
Yeah.
I've been training my entire life. So I get sent to this 2-week course. My level of understanding is totally different than theirs.
Yeah.
Deeper level than theirs. And then I'm teaching, and some of these people are my superiors who went to a 2-week course, never did anything else in their life. And I teach something, or I, express something, and they'd be like, "Oh, you can't say that." What do you mean I can't say that?
Yeah.
Well, this benefits this officer. It's going to keep them safe, and and it's along the lines.
You start to
It fits the program,
Yeah.
but you can't do that. And why can't I do that? And they can't explain why.
because
it's not in the book.
Yeah.
But they don't understand that a book is simply, it's not written in stone.
Well, doesn't that the whole concept of the book defining something is the same thing as saying that nature and reality itself is purely democratic. That just because a Congress of individuals have decided it, so
Yes.
it is true
Yes.
without without abstention. You know what I mean? It's
Just because it's
Yeah.
on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
You know?
It's been written.
Yeah.
And not that contempt should always be a product of, or the following product of something that has been established, but I think it is important to recognize that laws and policies are extremely subjective, and they are not the defining or governing, fabric of reality itself.
Yeah.
I find that happens most often when organizations or groups get too large.
Yeah.
And then they can no longer account for all the various contexts and groups of people and cultures within themselves.
Jesse Enkamp said it best when he says, he explains it like this. You follow a recipe within the cookbook, right?
Mm-hmm.
Verbatim.
Yep.
Then you memorize that recipe once you're comfortable with it. Then you substitute ingredients for your taste.
Yeah.
Once you learn the recipe.
Yep.
You understand? So the book is written as a guideline
Yes.
to help you understand, but then you have to make it your own.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? And as long as when you make it your own, it fits within the framework of what you need it for, you're perfect. Meaning law enforcement circles need a certain framework. You have to effect an arrest. You have to do it within the use of force continuum and all these things. So your art has to fit that.
Yeah.
You understand? In the street, you're a little bit more free. As a street fighter,
Right.
You're a little bit more free in your expression. Law enforcement has to go down a certain path, but the book provides the framework. You memorize that, and then you express it your way to achieve that goal.
Right.
That's it.
The most pragmatic judgment in that moment.
But they're always like,
yeah,
it's not in the book. It's not in the book. And I fought that. And I finally got to a point where we were, me and my team that I supervised, finally got to a point where we rewrote the book.
That's awesome.
You know, so to express the way
That's
it's supposed
so
to be.
awesome.
We got to that point.
Yeah.
But since I left, I'm sure they changed things again because, you know,
Yeah.
I'm not there to fight the fight,
Right.
you know? So
isn't that
it
something
is.
too? You got to always, it's crazy. And that's one of those things that gets me pissed off the most too, when somebody goes, it's the law. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's one thing when you're really, you know, stepping over some wild boundaries, but it's another when it's these very frivolous policies, you know, and it's like, well, what is the law? I mean, the law doesn't determine what's right or wrong.
Yeah.
It's supposed to.
The concept of right or wrong is demographically set.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is this. You know that missionary guy that went to that remote island wherever, took the boat, got let off on the beach to teach those natives about
Jesus.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And they ended up
are like, nah.
and they killed him.
Yeah.
Remember that?
I do actually.
That
Was
was
it
like
a plane or a boat? I do remember
yeah,
seeing the documentary.
Well, it was
a documentary. I don't know if it's the same one, but that happens pretty frequently.
It happened probably, I want to say 4 years ago or something.
Was it
5
South
years ago.
America or Africa?
Somewhere. But they killed him. So they're not in jail because murder is not illegal over there.
Yeah.
He infiltrated their area.
Yeah.
They killed him.
Yeah.
We don't want to hear about Jesus. Here you go.
Yeah.
Take this arrow.
Yeah.
You know, they killed him. So over here, murder's frowned upon.
Yeah.
You understand? So it's demographically set. For example, in this household, you know, we call them operating systems. So in this household, there's certain operating systems that happen amongst the inhabitants of this household that the next household might not observe.
Yeah.
And it's foreign to them. You know what I'm saying?
It appeals to the structural integrity of the system, usually. It's like, all right, well, we can't let people, you know, kill these Jehovah's Witnesses just because they don't want to hear about it today.
Exactly, you know?
Like, that's steep. That's steep for that, you know?
So the concept of right or wrong, it really doesn't exist.
But it is awkward when somebody breaks into your house and you kill that motherfucker, and then people are like, oh my God, you killed him? It's like, well, you came in, I have fucking kids. This guy had a gun?
Well, see,
now you're made up to be a bad guy.
And down south, it's okay to kill somebody.
Yeah.
In Massachusetts, you know, for breaking in your house. In Massachusetts, you can't use deadly force solely to protect property.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So it's right over there. It's
How do you
wrong
feel
here.
about that?
The thing is, you know,
because it is subjective. I mean, say you have a daughter, you said, right? And then somebody comes in with. You have probably a good eye for when something is escalating to a point at which it needs to be stopped immediately.
The thing is, though, it's like, you know, it's an individual thing.
Yeah,
I'm not in fear for my life in a lot of situations that people are in fear for their life.
Right.
So I could never say somebody was wrong.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So it's not that, you know, you can't use deadly force solely to protect property, but you can use deadly force if you're in fear for your life. So I wasn't protecting my couch. I was kind of scared. But see, the problem is they're going to take your training into account.
Well, it depends on who's
like
telling your story, too.
Yeah.
Say it was fear in your life, in your daughter's life. Mm-hmm. Whoever's telling the story might be like, oh, he killed this man because he was trying to steal his TV. Well, or something, you know what I mean? Like, depending on who's telling your story.
Yeah, it's my job. It's my job. It's anybody's job to be able to articulate why.
Yeah.
That's the job. That's what I used to teach my officers. I tell them, listen, you know, you can do what you got to do.
Yeah.
But you got to be able to articulate it so people understand why you did what you did.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to keep you out of jail.
Yeah.
That's what's going to keep you employed. That's what's going to, you understand? So I can express it, and the thing is, you know, I've been in situations where I've disarmed people with shanks.
Yeah.
I've disarmed people with knives. I've disarmed, you know, people with a variety of different weapons because I'm not in really fear for my life,
right?
Like most people are.
And that's probably mitigated by the degree at which you understand how to deal with those situations too.
Exactly.
And I think that's another really really important key component as to why people should understand more how to defend themselves
Exactly.
Efficiently.
Exactly. And
Because
why
obviously
training,
somebody breaks into your house and all you have is a gun. Guess what you're using to defend yourself?
While training has to be real in police departments and things like that, because it'll help them negotiate these situations a lot better instead of shooting everybody.
Well, that's one thing I'm always like completely blown away by is like if you're in law enforcement and you're like obese, like you're just out of shape, you can tell. Like you see some people and you're like, bro, you're using the gun or the taser or the fucking whatever. You're using the fucking batarang, dude, because you're not gonna catch anybody, and you're not gonna put you're not gonna have the cardio to withstand a scrap. Like you're fucked.
Yeah.
Sweating walking up the escalator. It happens.
Yeah, very true. Very true. It that would change the training. And when I used to teach law enforcement, I'd walk in the room and the people in the room be like, "Oh, here we go."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Dude, what's happening right now?" This is, because they know how I am and how I train, and they're just like,
they didn't regard the importance of self-defense probably in the same way that you're trying to convey.
Not in the slightest bit.
So regarding because obviously you set a high standard for yourself, right? So regarding that high standard though, like how do you think we could possibly implement cultivating that type of standard in other people? Because obviously it's best when that standard comes from like an inner drive to like, this is important to me. Right, but if an outside organization is like trying to impose a standard like that on you, like that's like
you have to remind them of what's important.
Yeah,
what's at stake. It's not about. I think it's about making better students. You have to make them better students. You have to convince them, and they have to receive the information of what's at stake. You want to get home to your family? You want to be able to protect your family? One situation that, and I tell this to people, when in law enforcement circles, I tell them like this: listen, I was dealing with a prisoner, and in the process of me fighting this prisoner, he said, "That's a beautiful woman that drives that Pontiac G6." That was my wife at the time. She drove a black Pontiac G6.
That's some psychological warfare.
Yeah, I was in prison dealing with this inmate.
Oh, he would say that shit to you?
He said that to me. This inmate, in the middle of the fight, he said, "That's a beautiful woman driving that Pontiac G6. It'd be a shame if something happened to her."
That's fucked up.
That's the type of stuff that's at stake. So I went home. It was near Valentine's Day. I bought her a Walther PK 380 for Valentine's Day.
There you go.
Taught her how to use
nice
it.
Gift.
Yeah, taught her how to use it, and say, "Yo, you need to watch yourself."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People need to understand what's at stake. They don't, though. And a lot of people don't care. Like I said, people are lazy. This is the microwave age. This day and age.
That's a good point,
every quick fix. Nobody wants to work for anything this day and age.
No.
Participation trophy time.
No sense of refinement. Everything needs to be now.
Yep.
It's such a shame that somebody like you could come in teaching a class where you have a clear expertise in it, and the fact that there can be people like off in the corner like, "Oh boy, here we go." That's like what's going on with those people where they don't recognize that there's something of value here, or at the very least it's
not valuable to them.
Well, it can also be
crazy.
It can also be diminishing to the integrity of the speaker or the teacher in your instance. Or was the environment them sitting down? Because if that's the case, sometimes that's again that perpetuation of the post-industrial age structure of education or lecture.
Even when it's a interactive class,
they weren't having it.
They're sitting back against the wall. I don't want to get sweaty. I don't want this. I don't want that. Right. But here's the crazy part. The same people, when the shit hits the fan, are coming to me later. "Yo, how could I have dealt with that a little better?" How could I, what would have kept me out of the hospital? And I just look at them and I'm just like.
No better place, too, thinking about it as probably, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, obviously, but what entails a corrections officer to be is somebody who's able to mitigate situations with his hands. You probably have access to firearms, obviously, because
only when you're on the outside. When you're on the inside, you're just
one of those things got out of hand.
You got to learn how to use you.
Everything's combat.
Yeah. So, and it's the most violent, isolated society in the world.
I bet.
Their whole mission is to learn how to do things better.
Yeah, well, you're dealing with people who've killed people.
Yeah.
I would assume that's got to be.
That's it. And that's,
crazy.
I tell that to martial artists all the time because they talk about, I got into a fight. No, you didn't get into a fight. You never know what it is to fight until you fought somebody who's actually crossed the line and killed somebody.
Yeah.
It's a totally different fight.
Right.
You're fighting somebody that works at Wendy's in class. You're grappling around. You're doing some kickboxing or whatever. You fight somebody that's actually killed somebody. They've crossed a line that they don't mind crossing again.
Yeah.
It's a totally different fight. A punch from somebody who has killed somebody is a different punch.
Yeah.
A kick, a lock, a this, a that, totally different.
Fighting somebody who's trying to kill you, I'm sure. Is the big difference.
There's people in there that killed their own parents.
Ooh.
You think they mind hurting you as a CO? And that's what people don't understand. You got to be able to match intensity and you got to understand what's at stake.
That's so crazy that wouldn't be the top priority of those people. The other COs, that is.
A lot of my coworkers have been medically retired.
Ooh. Meaning they got hurt on the job.
I've been through 22 years, a lot longer than that because of the other careers I've had in the same realm. But so we'll say 30 years of situations dealing with people like that. And I've never, ever been hurt.
Wow.
Think about that.
That says a lot.
I've been attacked several times.
Yeah.
I've disarmed people with shanks. I've done many things, and I came out on top because of my mindset and the way that I train.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
And my coworkers, and then they'll come to me and ask me my advice after I've been trying to get them to train or do this or do that or take this seriously or this or that. And then they come and ask me, hey, how could I? And I got nothing to say at that point. I say, I'm all set.
Jeez.
I think that's just a perfect evidence of just like you are what you do on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to that, it's also a great example of what it means to be prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were saying before, you can't be over prepared for those situations.
And that brings me to the, like people like Joe Rogan who talk junk about traditional martial arts and this and that and its lack of effectiveness. And, he speaks from a level of understanding or lack of understanding, I should say, that it really irritates me.
Well, I think the huge difference between you and him is he's done it always for sport.
Yeah.
I don't think he's ever fought people in a prison.
Yeah.
There's
that's
definitely
a huge difference
when there's a referee who's going to save your ass.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he'll also he's an intelligent man.
Yeah.
He's an intelligent man. So when he makes, I was listening one day and he was talking about, he showed some video of like a kung fu guy or somebody throwing a back fist and he's laughing at that technique. And he goes, that is nothing compared to an overhand right from a mixed martial artist. So I wrote him a message in that video, in the comment section. I said, yeah, you're right. You know what? What I wrote, like an adjustable wrench doesn't compare to a Phillips head screwdriver.
It's funny. I was just thinking that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then I got in an argument. I don't know if Pat told you.
With Joe Rogan?
No. With everybody that was involved.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, dude, listen, Joe Rogan has so many people who just love him unconditionally.
Yeah,
so
they came at me.
Yeah.
They came at me.
Yeah.
So I wrote, hey, listen, I'm sorry for attacking your god, Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Pat came to me and was like, what are you doing?
Oh, boy. Well,
Dude, you got to be careful in the comments section on anything online, man, because you will get in never-ending wars of arguments.
I've been there.
He gets that a lot too. People send him videos all the time of actual, like you probably see it yourself, very fluff type martial arts that aren't real. Like you ever see those guys who are like mind controlling their students? That he'll go like this and the guy falls down asleep or something.
That irritates me highly. But
because they're teaching that to people and they're handing out belts for it. It's like, damn, bro.
But not, I mean, what I'm saying is this: he's attacking these arts.
Yes,
but it's what it's just like saying. It's just like saying Snap-on tools are garbage.
Well, you put it really well. You said it's the effect of him saying Phillips screwdrivers are useless. What does that mean? If you're trying to maybe tighten a pipe,
two different tools for two different reasons, two different purposes.
You know what I think it really is, though, is so the way that you express your interpretation and your teacher's interpretations of karate is very different from the way a lot of people express it to the mainstream public, right? And so he's probably getting his perception of karate from the very different expression.
He's the vast majority.
He's not familiar with what you and your masters have been seeking to understand and express.
Mm-hmm. And I think, too, there's a huge... it's sort of an elephant in the room. Like, he has a lot to say about martial arts, but he only practices them. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really big deal because
he's like most.
He never uses them.
He's like most.
Yeah.
He
doesn't even compete.
He performs them, but he doesn't study them.
Yeah,
that's the difference. And you can tell the difference because you had when Danaher was on his podcast and educated him about jiu-jitsu.
Oh yeah,
you saw the
totally
difference.
Different.
Yeah.
Did you see that episode?
Is that recent?
No, that was like 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, then maybe no, I didn't.
So although Joe Rogan is a black belt
in two different forms,
Danaher's a black belt as well.
Who's Danaher?
John Danaher, the leader of the
he was the Renzo Gracie Academy Danaher Death Squad.
Yep, Danaher Death Squad.
Okay.
Yeah, so
watch that episode.
I will.
He actually, I'm pretty sure he has a PhD in philosophy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty badass.
Yeah.
So the way that he thinks about jiu-jitsu specifically is in the physical, but also in the conceptual and the what was the other you said you study techniques in 3 phases, right?
Oh yeah. Concept, theory, and
application.
The application.
Yeah. So Joe Rogan is a black belt in application.
Yes.
Right? But perhaps not in concept and theory.
They call Danaher Yoda.
No shit.
Yeah. You have to listen to that podcast. And that's the thing.
That's a big one, though. Having a PhD in philosophy is huge.
And this is how I know that there's a problem, because Joe Rogan he was denouncing Aikido, and I have a black belt in Aikido. Aikijutsu, Aikido. Aikijutsu is pre-war Aikido.
Yeah.
It's more in the self-defense realm.
Yeah.
He had somebody on there as he was making fun of Aikido, talking about Aikido, and it's supposed to be a black belt in Aikido. But the guy was like, he didn't know that Morihei Ueshiba was the founder of Aikido.
Who didn't know that?
The guy that was supposed to be a black belt in it. I was like,
really?
I had to turn off that podcast. I was so irritated. It's just, so I've been, I send messages to him and this guy Rokas, who was a black belt in Aikido and owned the school, and then he shut his school down because he felt that Aikido didn't work, and he started training MMA and had this MMA fight and all this other stuff. It's like a mechanic blaming his tools for the car not getting fixed.
Yeah, it
doesn't make sense.
Right.
It's stuff like that just bothers me.
Well, I would be bothered by it too, because especially being a real buff about it, you like it, you enjoy it, you like the theory. If you're at all enthralled by the theory of anything, you're gonna love all the aspects of it. And in that instance, for instance, like when Joe Rogan's weighing in on it, and it's like, how long have you practiced Aikido? Probably never. For Joe Rogan, So then what's your opinion? Because I'm not up here giving advice on Aikido myself. And why should I? How could I?
and now look at it. What do you got?
You know.
Everybody's doing Aikido locks in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now because one kid did it in competition.
Yeah.
And now they're giving it some validity.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, dude, this is stuff I've been telling people for years. I say, yes, this technique will work and this is how you use it and this and that. And now they're finally.
It's extremely surprising to me because, obviously I study mostly the system of jiu-jitsu and there's just Aikido locks that just like, they're right there and you're just totally unaware of them.
Right.
And most of your teachers, because they're so focused on their one system, they're also unaware of them. And it just fits right in. It's just like, I think Bruce Lee, his philosophy of studying everything, and your philosophy of studying everything, is so great because it's like, while none of these are the one size fits all, the master key answer to everything, if you integrate them together, then you will always find scenarios where they're appropriate.
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
To always be a student goes back to that, always being a student, because sometimes, like you were saying, if the master in that situation decides not to learn anymore and still teaches one way forever, then he might be hampering his ability to progress his own methods, you know?
The way most people approach their art, I call it a cup system, right? So within my house, I have beer mugs, coffee mugs, water tumblers,
wine glasses.
Yeah, I have everything, right? The way most people apply their art, all they have is water tumblers or tea cups or whatever.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So, for example, a sidekick is a sidekick. A cup is a cup. But there's different versions of cups for different desired beverages. There's different executions of a sidekick for different purposes. So for a system to say, well, we sidekick like this, doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Because not every situation is going to call for that sidekick.
Right. You don't want to put coffee in a wine glass.
Exactly. You see what I mean?
That's a good point.
When somebody specializes in something, that becomes a problem. People who specialize, I fought a boxer one time. This boxer was 280 pounds, 6'3", 6'4", and I knocked him out with a roundhouse kick to his face.
Damn.
You understand?
Right.
I fought another boxer. I knocked him out with a round. No, the first boxer was a hook kick. Second boxer was a roundhouse kick. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
I fought wrestlers who I got in Dead Orchard.
I find that if you specialize, you leave yourself so open to so many forms of attack.
Exactly.
Like wrestlers specifically, when a new guy comes in, he's a wrestler, and he comes in and tries to do jiu-jitsu, he does the takedowns the way that he learned in wrestling, which exposes his neck and his head.
Exactly. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if boxers punch in such a way where in Aikijutsu, you're able to break the arm like that. You see what I'm saying? But if you study, like I punch a certain way because I understand Aikijutsu. So I'm never going to get my arm broke. And when I was fighting in a tournament in Japan, guy tried to break my arm. He broke my partner's arm.
Holy shit.
He tried to break my arm, but he couldn't because I study Aikijutsu.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, you don't hyperextend.
So I was able to punch and not get my arm broke.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
That's an extremely vulnerable situation to be in. Is in hyperextension in like any regard. Even if you like go to kick a ball and you miss the kick, you can fuck your knee up.
Yep.
Just because you're in hyperextension with momentum. And
yep.
That alone, never mind somebody else going, ooh, perfect.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll take that momentum. I don't know how we're doing for time. When's your thing?
Oh, it's at 1. I got nothing but time. I'm good. It's 12 right now.
I wanted to go. You're such a wealth of knowledge, Randy.
We can.
We're gonna have to do this again, no matter what.
Yeah.
Because there's gonna be a lot of things I know when I'm reviewing this. I'm like, shit, I should have asked him more about that. Because we got really just the cliff notes. I mean, it's only been, it's been over 2 hours. But what I'm saying is that 2 hours is not enough to get somebody's story like yourself. 40 45 years in martial arts, over 25 years in law enforcement. That's a lot, and traveling and stuff like that.
Yeah, everything I do comes around to my art.
Yeah.
Everything I do isn't my art, but everything I do benefits my art. And if it doesn't, I don't do it.
I hope that as time goes on and with Underground Alliance, I hope that builds up more momentum, because I think there's a lot of people who could learn so much from you.
Well, here's the thing about all right, so my dojo is called the Underground Alliance Martial Science Research Association.
You ever think about making an acronym?
Yeah, I know. You should see it on the shirt. It's crazy.
No, I do the same. Sometimes it might be
but and then when I shorten it, it's Underground Alliance.
Yeah,
I just say that. But this symbol represents the Underground Alliance. I see you.
Is that your shirt? Mm-hmm. Oh, that's awesome. I like that shirt a lot.
I'll have to get you one.
Yeah, give me one.
Definitely. So my books, again, everything I do, I put my symbol on it.
Okay.
That's my branding.
Yeah.
That's my thing.
That's smart to do. So you know who the source is,
So that's my first book.
Oh, that's a very, very, that's not intimidating. I like that, because
that's my second book.
Not much of a bookworm, but this is nice.
They're thin, but heavy in content.
Yes.
That's the thing. I've read
less
books,
is more sometimes.
I've read books that were as thick as an encyclopedia and had nothing in it.
In fact, it's very the style, with martial arts, I feel like in a lot of ways, less is always more.
This is my third book that I print out myself.
Oh, that's the one. Is that one you're right now trying to get that published?
Well, I'm not going to publish it. I think I'm going to just print it out myself for my students. So this is what it looks like when I print it. Oh,
that's the one you were talking about, like exclusively for your students.
Mm-hmm. So everything I do is under the Underground Alliance banner. And it's just all about my vision and my expression and my research about training in the martial sciences. And it doesn't matter what system you study. If you train in a pragmatic fashion, then this will benefit you.
Yeah.
If it's for sport or whatever, that's
that's
fine.
The cool thing about that, the nature of going about it as though with the intention of utilizing it in realistic situations, is that it's like you were saying before. You can never be over prepared, because say you do want to compete, no problem.
Yep.
But if you're in a situation where you really need it to protect yourself or your family, then you're ready.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's a really good point.
On the back of those is different information.
Yeah.
Those are the trading cards, different information.
That's awesome.
And so my YouTube channel is all about training. And the reason I started that was because my daughter's mother passed away. She committed suicide.
Oh my God, I'm sorry to hear that.
And when my daughter was young, my daughter's 25 now. But I wanted my purpose was so my daughter, if something happened to me, she'd always have a place to see me.
Yeah.
And with the, inception of YouTube and all this other stuff.
Well, it's funny you say that. That's a really good point. Steve-O actually said it on Hot Ones. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that show.
Yes,
Wings. He said, so some people, life itself always seems to sort of perpetuate a form of intelligence or form of information that kind of supersedes it. So your daughter would be that for you. Or the way Steve-O put it, he goes, well, my mark on the wall would be my videos. Those will probably last forever.
Exactly.
And you can always go and see what that person's legacy was, or or what. He has a great story too, because he was an avid addict. Like, he was on all these drugs for a very long time, and if anybody knows his story, he also has a really great book. And that might be something that supersedes his life and carries on somewhat of a legacy of its own without his presence. And in the same way with your videos, you'll always have your information and your truth out there.
My books and my videos, or my YouTube page itself, is so my daughter always has opportunity and access to me.
Yeah.
Always. And it serves a dual purpose. My books, when I got my black belt, my first black belt, my instructors charged me with the mission to help those who truly need help. So this is my way of giving back to the martial arts right there.
Yeah.
As well, because certain ranks come after 5th degree. It's what you give back to the martial arts.
Yeah, I was gonna say, with your level of wherewithal, it would be a shame if you didn't produce some type of content for anybody. I mean, just in this short conversation I've had with you, I want to learn more. I want to sit down. I want to do this again. Like,
I'm always available. I'm retired, and all I do is train and teach.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I maybe receive a few leg kicks to the chest. He was telling me down the road, maybe.
Oh, that's a fun time.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's wrap this up because I got to go to the bathroom, and it's over 2 hours. This is a great podcast, and you've really sparked my flame because sometimes I was getting a little uninspired to do these. So thanks for coming in today, Randy.
Not a problem.
And it's been an honor talking to you and learning a little bit from you and seeing what you do and getting a better grasp of what you do, because what you do is certainly invaluable in a lot of ways. And I think the world could learn a lot from this type of information, because obviously today's day and age, the most accessible information is completely useless. You know what I mean? On a wide scale. You know what I'm saying? It's just like between what social media really plugs into people's brains versus what kind of information. We have these amazing tools in our pockets, and we don't know how to use them in the same way we have amazing tools on our body, and we don't even know how to use them.
Thank you.
know? And you're the guy to help us learn that, I think. From all of what I've learned from you today, books, everything. But guys, everything is below Instagram, Facebook, right?
Yep.
And his website as well will all be below. So check that out. And thanks again for coming on today, Randy.
Thank you.
Woo! See you guys.